It's quite a challenge. First is the afternoon slot. Everybody sort of had a good lunch, and then I'm following two absolute legends in Gagan and Sabyasachi, so I have a bit of a hard job. But hopefully we'll keep it exciting. So I grew up in Bombay in the 80s and 90s in a suburb called Chunavati. My local transportation was always public transportation, so local train Zindabad. It was amazing. It made me move around fast. It was cheap. When I had an allowance that I could afford, I would take the auto. We never had a car, and we never thought that was necessary. And then I moved to Gurgaon in 2008, and when we moved to Gurgaon, bustling, sort of really coming up, you could feel the vibe, really exciting city, very dusty, and, reasonable amount of traffic. And I look at 2025, what's changed? Not much, no? It's still buzzy. It is still really busy. There's a lot of construction still going on. What used to be 10 sectors, now I think it's like 25 or 30 sectors. And it's still crazy. Despite building so much, our experience on the roads is just miserable as ever. My wife is in the audience today. She travels from Delhi to Gurgaon every day, and it's probably an hour and a half one way. And I think about why that is the case. And it's not because we are not building. The Indian government spend on capex infrastructure is 800% up in the last few years. It's 3% of spend. DMRC is one of the world's busiest and best metro systems, and yet transportation is a challenge simply because we are in the midst of a once-in-a-civilization type moment. And what's that? Everybody knows it. It's mass urbanization. 270 million people. Now, these numbers get numbing because we live in India and we take it for granted, but 270 million people will move into cities between now and 2035. Is there any hope that you can build enough roads to keep up with that? Right? Today, this is an upwardly mobile country. People should come to cities because this is where the excitement is. This is where growth is. This is where opportunities are. This is where innovation is happening. But the moment people make it in life, first thing you do obviously is housing. But once you have done that, what's the next thing you do? You buy a car, right? That's the symbol. That's what everybody wants to get to. That is the signature of being upwardly mobile in our country. But there's just not ever going to be enough space on the roads. Some stats are always bothersome because we look at this every day. 90% of your time, your car is standing idle. 90% of the time. If you go to most cities, about 20 to 40% of space on the road is used for parking, right? So cars are not moving. Cars are going to be parked. On an average, there is 1.3 people in a car. That means 70% of your road capacity today is being used by 20% of the people. How will this work? And that's why, if you think about solutions for a country of our scale and size, it cannot be a solution that is dependent on roads, and it cannot be a solution that is dependent on private vehicles. I think we have the right intent, but the scale and the speed at which we are building transport infrastructure has to keep up. We want to be a developed country by 2047. That's our goal. That's our Prime Minister's desire. To be able to do that, we have to move not at US scale speed, not at UK scale speed. Those are all old benchmarks. The only benchmark today is China's speed and scale because they are building the scale of public transportation that allows everybody in this room to use it. Quick show of hands, how many of you all took Delhi Metro to get here today? Fact, zero. Right, and that's the problem, right? You need to make India a place where it is perfectly acceptable, not just acceptable, that's the only way you should want to travel because it will be faster, for sure. It is definitely going to be cheaper. Today you won't take it because there are many things that are broken, and I'll come to that in a second. And ultimately, we do live in the place that is amongst the most polluted in the world today. I don't know how many of the world's top 10 polluted cities are in India. Both my kids have grown up here in Gurgaon, and both of them have had asthma for the longest time in their growing up phase. And that has to change, and that can happen only if public transit can really get to that level. It has to become first, not just convenient, but it's got to be okay to live, right? Like once you get in, if you're going to be pushed around, there's no place to sit, you're not going to take it because you can afford to take a car. You'd rather sit in a car for an hour and a half than take the push and the shove and the difficulty of going into a metro. So that needs to get fixed. The other thing that needs to also get fixed is first and last mile connectivity. You live 1 kilometer from the metro, 2 kilometers from the metro. How do you get there? There are no great solutions. When you get on the other side, you need to get to office. You probably are still 10 minutes away. How do you get there? You need to find a solution that combines the first and last mile. Anybody from Bangalore in this audience? I hate picking on Bangalore because of traffic, but I'll do because it's always entertaining. On an average, a Bangalorean loses 15 days in a year because of the time they have spent in traffic. 15 days. Yaar, utni chutti mil jati, to imagine how life would have been. That's the level of wastage that we are willing to put up with. And frankly, I think that is okay in the India of the past, but for the India of the future, that has to change. So when you talk about the first and last mile access, one of the things that Uber's been involved with more recently is the really boring solution, but seems quite innovative, bike taxis. India has 250 million two-wheelers for a country of 1.3 or 4 billion people. It's the second largest two-wheeler market in the world. It works really well. It's 1/3 the cost. It's really fast. It's typically meant for first and last mile. But in India, there is still a fair amount of regulatory uncertainty on this topic. It is the mode that is likely today, other than autos and e-rickshaws, the only other solution that could scale. That brings me to the third piece of it. Let's assume you have amazing mass transit metro systems. And let's assume that you have really good first and last mile. We still need technology to come to the play because who's going to do this? First pay for your bike ride, then buy the ticket, stand in queue, or tap, or get in, then get on the other side, find something else. It's broken today. You have to make that seamless. ONDC is trying. I think it's got the first steps going. But there's a lot more to do because every single metro system in this country is on a different stack. Every public transit is on a different stack. They're all building their own technologies that has to come together. So when you leave the house and press a button, you know you have tickets for everything. You know what mode is going to arrive at what point in time so that you can jump on it and go forward, right? That's the solution that you have to get to. Which brings me to why I'm on this podium today. There are a couple of really important reasons to think about this. Of course, this is about moving the country, right? Transportation is core. It's not fancy, it's not fun. You go because you have to. How many of you all really go to take your transportation because you enjoy it? Right? It's a pain. We just do it because aur koi option hai nahi. Work from home khatam ho gaya, so you have to go to work. And that makes it hard, right? But you think about the reasons why you do it, and one of the reasons is thinking about participation in the workforce for women. And I want to make this connection a little bit more explicit because in India today, 37% of women are part of the workforce. For any country that aspires to be a leading country, this is the lowest of the low benchmarks for that scale, right? And one of the big reasons why that doesn't happen is because women feel unsafe in public transportation. At Uber, got to say, we had our own challenges, but I will say this, the amount of technology, training, systems we have built to invest in safety, our riders come back and say 88% of the women who use ride-hail feel like it's a much safer option. Building that type of safety systems has to be true across every single mode of transport. That's a big reason to do it. The second reason to do it, and I'll tell you a personal story, in 2016 when I joined Uber, when I got the offer, my family was around, and so I told my wife, and the two of us told this to my son. My son at that time was 8 years old, and when he heard that I was going to join Uber, he started crying. He started crying, and so we were puzzled, why is he crying? And then he said, Papa, aap taxi chalaoge? And it was striking actually, right? It was funny at that time, but frankly, you think about one of the issues in our country is dignity of labor. There are multiple millions of people today that are bringing your quick commerce delivery to you in 10 minutes, people who are bringing your food to you in an hour, your Amazon packages overnight, and obviously on the click of a button, they're coming to pick you up. And we need to make this a profession that has dignity attached to it. And formalizing the gig economy is something that is super critical, and it's something that India is in the very, very early stages of. So, many reasons why transportation is important, but women's participation, as well as that the uplifting of the gig economy workforce and bringing dignity of labor, equally critical. The last thing today I'm going to spend time on is how can you talk about mobility and mobility future without talking about self-driving cars? The last 2 years of my life in my role at Uber, I've taken probably 50, 60 self-drive rides in 4 countries. I've done it in the US, I've done it in China, I've done it in the Middle East, I've done it in London. And I can pretty confidently say that this is a solved technology issue. There's always going to be the remaining 5, 10% that is still there, but it works, and it works beautifully. Early rider feedback is so positive because, frankly, a lot of people just don't want somebody else in their vehicle with them. It gives them privacy, it gives them space, let alone there are 6 cameras in the car that are directly looking at you, but we have gone past the time. It's okay for us to be digitally out there, but it's uncomfortable when there is another human being involved. So adoption signs are pretty positive. It is interesting, our minister here will say India is probably going to not be the first market where autonomous happens, which I think is true because we also have low labor cost. But the other reason people say is because, yaar, tumne road dekhi hai hamari? Yahan pe self-drive car kaise chalegi? And I want to tell you one story. I was in the back alleys in the suburbs of Beijing. And honestly, I mean, that could have been Patel Nagar, or it could have been Kirti Nagar, or any of our markets. And self-drive cars were absolutely perfectly able to navigate that chaos. I did a trip in London for folks who have traveled on the roads. It's not great. I mean, these are narrow roads. There's a lot of traffic. It is unpredictable. And that technology on London roads also works really beautifully. Now, there are many other things to be sorted out. Technology is still early. Economics are still to be worked out. Maybe it's 5 years, maybe it's 10 years, maybe it's 15 years. But you are headed to a world where those two things come together. Some of our guests have said they're pro-AI, some have said they're anti-AI. For sure, transportation is going to be the largest use case for physical AI for the first 15 years of this journey. I think humanoids and robots and all the other things will come later. But it is a revolution that is waiting to happen. And I do wish India is going to be participating in that revolution in a really, really meaningful way. So I'm going to end by saying things that are mostly sort of not very popular, right? The mayor of Barcelona used to say this. They said the pride that comes from being a developed nation is not about when people say, I have my own car to go in. It's when rich people feel like it's most natural to take public transport. And this room probably is a representation of the higher end of our society. When this room feels comfortable taking public transport, that's the point in time we'd say we have truly arrived as a developed nation, because the solution that is the opposite, which is build more roads, get more cars, is only going to make this much worse. So I'll leave that as my thought with you. Hope that was interesting. And for the ET crowd, thanks so much for giving me the opportunity to be here today.